Hello, job seekers. Melanie Woods here. Now, as our YouTube channel has gotten more and more popular, we have picked up a much, much larger audience outside of the United States. And so I'm constantly asked, both on LinkedIn and all of our other platforms, well, how do I get a job in the US? How do I go about that process? And I thought it was high time for me to actually record a video to give you some insight into that process and what you need to do. Now, it's impossible for me to hit every country, right? Because every country is a little bit different in coming in for the US. And so it is going to require some research on your side, but I'm going to talk about the major chunks of getting a job in the US. And I hope that this data is helpful to all of you. Now, if you haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment and do that now. We have over 250 videos now out here, all designed to help you get a job faster. Okay, let's talk about getting a job here in the US, where I am. Now, the key to getting a job here, it's all about the visa. Now, different countries have different visas in order to get into the US. You may have to do different things. And I'm going to give you an example. Everyone thinks about what we call the H-1B visa. And there are never enough H-1B visas around for everybody. There's always, especially recent years, there's this like pool that you have to go into and, hope that you get one. But it is not the only form of visas to get into the US. For example, if you live in Canada or you live in Mexico, you can qualify for what's called an L1 visa, and that is part of NAFTA. And an L1 visa is far easier to get than an H-1B visa. So there's different visas depending on what you do. Here are some of the total tenets that go across all of the visas for the US anyway. In order to get one of these visas, that's not like a refugee visa or a special needs visa. You have to actually have something that cannot be found in the US or is an advantage to the US. So, for example, when we go to get someone on an H-1B visa, we have to show or prove that we're not able to get somebody here in the US with this specific skill set, or that there is an employment gap where there's not enough of this type of engineer here, and therefore we need to bring people in from other locations. And I know for my HR peers watching this, I'm simplifying this down some, but I'm trying to give the generalizations of it. So for those types of visas, how can you qualify for more of them? What's going to set you apart versus the others? Well, definitely education is a key factor. And not only education, formal education, like the master's or the PhD, but also specialty certifications. When you get those type of things, it can help you in order to qualify for other visas. There are some visas that if you have that PhD, are a lot easier to get in than you're ever going to get in on H-1B. Now, all of these visas for the US, if you go to the Department of Labor in the US, and that's dol.gov. Again, it's dol.gov. It's going to help you to understand all of the different visas that are out there, and there's quite a few, and then you can read the requirements to see which ones you fit into better. Now, as far as companies in the US, not all of them are open to hiring people on visas. And the reason for that is two things. I think, anyway, it's two things. The first is cost. There is a substantial cost on visas. It can cost $20,000, and not every company is willing to make that investment of relocating somebody and paying for a visa, and then the visa is only good for a certain duration, and then having to work through the green card process if that person wants to stay. So cost is a huge factor in this. The other factor that comes into play here when we're talking about visas is just because there are so many different ones of them, some people just don't know enough about them and they're scared of them. So they just, no, that's okay. Let me work through and find somebody that's here. So it can be difficult for you when you're trying to come over on a visa if the company is just not willing to even consider it. So if you're trying to get over on one of these visas, what companies should you be targeting? Well, in general, bigger companies tend to have more experience with doing visas. So if you can go at a bigger company, it's actually a lot of times even a department that helps with this inside the very larger company. The other thing that I highly recommend you do is you don't have to do this alone. There's other people that have done this, I feel confident, from your country into the US. And so what you need to try and do is find a connection point with those people. See if you can engage with them. See what type of visa they were able to get over into the US on, and if a certain company sponsored that visa. And then if they did, you know you have a company there who is very open and willing to go through the visa process. So I know that this is a lot of data for you, and I know it's going to still require a lot of research on your side. The other thing I would tell you is the internet and YouTube is a beautiful thing, and there are some individuals that are out there who definitely focus in on getting these different visas, whether from an educational standpoint or other. I would start with the Department of Labor, that's dol.gov, and then go out and do some YouTube searches on this to find other stories of individuals who have made the switch in. It is possible. You can do it. It requires a little bit more work. Now, one last thing I should say is it's a little harder right now because we're still, as I'm recording this, it's September of 2021, and we're still very much in the midst of this global pandemic. And with this global pandemic, there's a lot of people on the market, and so there's not a lot of companies reaching out to get people on visas. They don't have to, right? There's still people here in the US who need jobs, so they're going to be hiring those people first before they start reaching out to get people from other locations with visas. So once the pandemic starts to wane down, hopefully, we're continuing to go in the right path in that, you will see more and more visas starting to be offered again. All right, everyone, I hope this data was helpful as always. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.